News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Mark Cuban does look like Rachel Maddow more and more. Put the glasses on. People are saying he is the new Rachel. He's Rachel Maddow. He's turning into Rachel Maddow. They are one and the same. I don't know. But we one more thing we got to point out on this United Healthcare CEO getting assassinated. Your thoughts on it, by the way, 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. And this is unbelievable. It's unreal that CNN had this flash across the screen. I'm not saying it's wrong, but this is insane. The quote, the entire United Healthcare leadership team had security. I mean, what the heck? The guy's dead. Nobody was there even to stop him. Where's the security? Holy gosh. Somebody's getting fired today, right? I mean, what do you... Now, hold on. I have been doing a poll on my Twitter feed at Chris Crock Show. That's at Chris Crock Show. Oh my gosh, it's 50-50 right now. Here's the poll, and I'll pin it to the top of my Twitter feed at Chris Crock Show, CHRISKROK, CHRISKROK. And you can chime in on that at Chris Crock Show, CHRISKROK, and vote. CNN just reported the entire United Healthcare leadership team has security. Hard pass on that security. Whose security is worth? The United States Secret Service or United Healthcare security team? And producer Garrett had a very, very good point that made me laugh very hard. At least the Secret Service showed up for their job. They were there. What the heck? Where was the United Healthcare security guy? Was he sleeping in? Holy gosh. I never thought about that. Like you have an $80 billion profit company. You have a guy who has presumably tens of thousands of employees. You have scores and scores of potentially disgruntled employees. You have scores and scores of potentially disgruntled customers who perhaps their loved one may have had a denial in something and may have passed from a denial for God knows what, right? Cancer or surgery, whatever. And you got this guy walking around at 6:30 in the morning. Some guy's standing out there waiting, and he's walking around at 6:30 in the morning with no protection. What? This is so crazy. Dude, I would expect the head of the security for United Healthcare team to be fired, and possibly the number 2 person, and then also whoever was supposed to be protecting him, I'm sure. This is insane. And that poor widow, she's back at home, and she said he had gotten threats. If he had gotten threats, and the entire team has security, where were they? This is insane. I mean, dude, what does $80 billion buy you? Not enough security. And by the way, this is the truth. You will learn from anybody who will tell you, a local cop, or anybody that works in this kind of an industry. You can never, if somebody really wants to do it, they're going to find a way to do it. And whether it be steal your car, break into your house, or threaten your life, or do something to you, if they really ultimately want to do it, they're going to do it. And there's no way to protect yourself 100%. It's never fail-safe. Thankfully, in the United States of America, we have protections, but there's still nowhere near what. Think of the woman who's a Iranian American journalist who the terrorist state, the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, Iran, has been trying to kill her. It had 2 or 3 attempts, and there have been 2 or 3 different people arrested, showing up at her door wherever she does live with rifles to kill her. And same thing with Trump. Same thing with his people that were in charge when he took out Qasem Soleimani, the head of the IRCG, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Trying to kill him, trying to kill his team. I want to switch, though, into the transgender stuff, because right now in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, they were oral arguments, and they were supposed to be 1 hour long. They turned into 2.5 hour long oral arguments, which is insane. That's how in-depth this is. You have to listen to Justice Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh and their questions, and then you have to hear the radical leftist Sonia Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson with their questions. It is unbelievable. They're literally saying that you know how people who have constitutional protection under the 14th Amendment, protection for non-discrimination against people, or for interracial marriages, for example. That's been settled a long time ago. You have liberals in front of the Supreme Court saying that it is the same right for a child to butcher their genitals. Nobody is arguing that if you're 18 or older, you can get whatever transgender surgery you want when you're an adult. What this is a Tennessee law that says and by the way, about half of the states have this now, thankfully. And it says you cannot have, and I believe Texas has it, to my knowledge, that we have all the same laws. You cannot take a child and get them puberty blockers that will put their heart at risk permanently, put their bone, their bone density and their bone, I believe their structure, can permanently hurt their bones from growth and other harmful effects and many other things. And the transgender reassignment surgery and the transgender, the puberty blocker garbage are terrible, destructive, so destructive that the early countries that were having this and allowing this, the people at the forefront, the United Kingdom, Britain, Norway, Sweden, Finland, have all either banned it now because they've seen the deleterious effects, the harmful forever effects, and they've seen the lie that how do you say it? Suicidality? No, it'll come to me. Suicidal ideology, thank you, is not increased. There's no evidence. There's no study that shows that. The leftist groups try to this means more kids are going to kill themselves if they don't let them cut their hoo-ha off. If you don't let a boy cut his penis off when he's 16 or 15 years old, he's going to kill himself. That's a lie. And there is no scientific evidence that if you do allow that, whether to a child or an adult, that it is a panacea. And so number one, there's no studies saying this helps. Second of all, the studies that have been done by European countries that have allowed this early on have all changed their mind. That tells you everything you need to know. This is the abuse of a child. And one of my buddies writes, if you can't put a bruise on a child, if you can't beat a child or hurt their body like that, why in God's name should you be allowed to let your child cut his penis off or cut her breasts off? And the last thing is there are so many teenage girls who have their breasts cut off. And then when they're 18, 25, they say, I want these breasts that I used to have to be able to nurse my child. I want to be able to birth a child. I cannot do that anymore. And we've seen them on the news. 60 Minutes, Leslie Stahl did an unbelievable piece that people would never think coming from that leftist 60 Minutes. She had like 4 or 5 people on that were transgender. I played they were and detransitioned. One man who said, I followed everything they told me to do. All the counselors in college. I read every book. I did everything they told me to do. And after I got it all done, I realized it was a lie. And at that point, I was more suicidal and hated myself more than anything I've ever done in my life. And I believe that what the enemy gets you to do is to butcher yourself, and then you're like that, and you realize you're at the bottom of a pit, and it's even worse because now you've done it permanently. And then the enemy likes to laugh at you after you do that to yourself. Scoff at you. Look at you. You can never put that thing back on. Ha ha ha, I really got you now. You ain't happy. You're miserable. To do that to a child, and a parent, some of whom are well-meaning and mean well, my kid's going to die if I don't do this, so I better do this. Or for a parent to knowingly do this because they have this agenda. That is so evil. No one is here to stop somebody who's 18 or 19 or 20 wants to rush out and have their penis thwacked off or the vagina turned into a penis, even though it'll never be the same thing. No offense. Or have their breastises thwacked off. But this is doing horrible things to children. And I'm glad the state of Tennessee has passed this law. I'm glad that we have similar laws in the great state of Texas. And I'm glad our governor, our lieutenant governor, and our Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton are all vigorously pursuing any of these hospitals that fight this, that try to encourage this, that try to butcher children's genitals. Shame on you. You are the Joseph Mengelas of the 2023-2024. Shame on you. I'm going to play the U.S. Supreme Court audio today. You're going to hear two justices that are conservatives ask questions that are like, oh my gosh, duh, right? In a good way. And then you're going to hear two liberal justices that are asking questions, duh, they're like, oh my gosh, they're literally saying that stopping a 16-year-old or a 14-year-old girl from cutting her breasts off is the same thing as denying interracial marriages. Can you believe that crap? Is it an immutable, here's the question, you're going to hear the arguments in a second. Is it an immutable characteristic? Is saying I'm 14 and I want to thwack off my penis, and my parents going to let me, but it's illegal so I can't, is that an immutable characteristic? Is that the same thing as a black woman trying to marry a white guy? An immutable characteristic is something you cannot change. It is how you were born. How are you born that way if you go, when you're 14, say, I'm not a boy anymore, I'm a girl? That's not an immutable characteristic. And there's people who change and go back to what they were to the beginning. So you'll hear one of the Supreme Court justices say, well, so if somebody's gender fluid, and it's a radical leftist transgender lawyer that's trying to, that's an exception. Kind of. Do you see this? It's a joke. It's a lie. And we will look back at this time and say, how the hell did we let this happen? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. I'm sure I went way beyond what producer Garrett wants me to go to, but sometimes you just got to go. Lines wide open. Chime in right now. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Do you feel transgender surgeries for minors should be the same thing as an interracial marriage as far as rights, like it's an immutable characteristic? Do you think minors getting transgender surgery is an immutable characteristic, especially when you have many people detransition later on? Who's standing up for the kids here? Shouldn't we? Shouldn't our Supreme Court? And how do you expect the Supreme Court to rule? How would you rule if you're on that Supreme Court? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Lines wide open. Chime in right now. I'll play the audio from the Supreme Court justices, and I'll get more in detail into the legal arguments here. Next on the Chris Crock Show on WBAP.
If it's evolving like that and changing, and England's pulling back and Sweden's pulling back, it strikes me as pretty heavy yellow light, if not red light, for this court to come in, the nine of us, and to constitutionalize the whole area when the rest of the world, or at least the people the countries that have been at the forefront of this, are pumping the brakes on this kind of treatment because of concerns about the risks.
When you're 1% of the population or less, very hard to see how the democratic process is going to protect you.
Well, Your Honor,
you blacks were a much larger part of the population, and it didn't protect them. It didn't protect women for whole centuries.
How insulting to compare what black Americans went through to somebody who's butchering a child's genitals. Isn't that sick? What the heck? That's not an immutable characteristics, because you'll hear in the next time I play some of this audio coming up at 33 after the hour, you will hear one of the Supreme Court justices say, what about people who are gender fluid? Is that an immutable characteristic? One year you're a man, next year you're a woman. How's that immutable? You're constantly changing like a chameleon. We cannot change our race. This is what this DEI crap does. It destroys women's rights. It destroys real civil rights. It's unbelievable how destructive it is, isn't it? 800-288-WBAP is our number. Let's go first to Greg in Wiley. You're on WBAP.
Hey, Chris, I actually have a PhD in psychology, so I've always looked at this as we're focusing this on the wrong thing. This is Munchausen by proxy. This is parents who are out for their attention gaining.
Yeah.
This is parents who are like, look at me, like the mom who gives poison to their daughter. So
yeah, people. That's what Munchausen. People that might not know Munchausen by proxy is when you purposely keep injuring or making your child sickly for you to get the attention of a grieving parent going through hell with the kid. Yeah.
Correct. And I don't see how this is any different. And if we switched it to the mental illness of the parent, then I think we would be more on point, because we would be sitting here talking about how the parent isn't necessarily stable. If they're 38 years old and they're okay to mutilate their 6-year-old, there's something wrong in their head.
Yes, there is.
Goes back to Munchausen by proxy. And I think that if they would approach it that way, it would probably give them a better stance.
I appreciate your call, Greg, and thank you very much. No, I don't have a PhD, but I'm on the radio, which is basically the same thing. Two lines open, 800, maybe not. Two lines open, 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. He brought up a very serious point. I want to get into this some more, though. Let's go to your call. Let's go next to Marshall in Bedford. Marshall, hello. You are on WBAP. What's up?
Thanks for taking my call, Chris.
Yes, sir.
Number one, I don't think these ideas are coming from the children themselves. It's like the first caller said, it's either going to be the parents looking for attention or it's the woke educators. Let's face it, the school system is doing anything in the world but teaching them what they ought to be teaching them. They're filling their head with all these crap ideas, and the kids are not coming up with this on their own.
Let me tell you this. You got a real good point here, because it spreads like a virus. You've seen, have you read the studies? Have you read the articles talking about when one kid starts saying the whole school, like all of a sudden 1 out of 3 people is transgender, which is nowhere. It's not even feasible. It's a trend. And with these trends, sometimes people get fooled into this and then they want to butcher their genitals and they're 12 or they're 10 or they're 13. It's just horrifying.
It's a sick way of a kid maybe trying to be more popular by saying, I'm going to be doing this.
Oh, yeah, because the lie from the left is, the real heroes are the people that are doing this. No, the real heroes are the ones that stand up to this. You are worshipped if you do this by the left and by the teachers and by the schools. You are worshipped. Oh, my gosh. Oh, yes. Oh, we're so... Yes, you're a hero. They're worshiping them.
Well, and the thing is, it's all on the left that's doing this. Conservatives do not even have these thoughts in their heads.
I appreciate your call, my friend. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But I want to say this. We have Errol in Houston. We have Dana in Salina. And 3 lines open for you. You're going to hear the next arguments coming up. This one will be, and it's back-to-back, one from the left, one from the right. And Supreme Court justices today, as they heard, instead of a 1-hour normal hearing, they did 2.5-hour blockbuster because it just went wild and with questions. And it was good. That's what our Supreme Court's for. They hear cases. And in this case, you'll hear Justice Alito take liberals to school, and you'll hear Ketanji Brown Jackson pull the freaking race crap again with like, well, it's like race, you can't be. So it's like, no, how insulting. Butchering your children's genitals or giving them hormone pills that will destroy their bone density, their heart possibly, permanently, is not the same as the color of your skin, which is immutable. That is next. 800-288-WBAP. 3 lines open on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. In just a couple of minutes, too, you're going to hear what happened with J.K. Rowling, the New York Times, and such for standing up to this radical leftist butchering of children and the violent, disgusting, wicked things that are thrust upon people who stand up to this. It's insane. Here, before we go to Errol in Houston and Dana in Salina, plus your call, 3 lines open, 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. The Supreme Court hearing arguments on the Tennessee law against transgender surgery for minors and against puberty blockers for minors. Let me play you some audio. Our number, by the way, is 800-288-WBAP. Do you feel trans surgery for minors should be looked at as the same thing under the 14th Amendment, which is the guarantee of equal protection of the laws? Equal Protection Clause requires the government to treat similarly situated people the same, a la interracial marriages, for example. So under that explanation, do you feel trans surgery for minors and puberty blockers should be the same thing as interracial marriages as far as rights? Do you think minors getting transgender surgery or puberty blockers is an immutable characteristic like your skin color? Who's standing up for the kids? Shouldn't we? And how do you expect the Supreme Court to rule? And how would you rule if you're on that Supreme Court? 800-288-WBAP is our number. Here's the, this is Justice Alito, conservative justice, and then Ketanji Brown Jackson, liberal radical leftist that Joe Biden just appointed.
Does the category of, does transgender status apply to individuals who are gender fluid?
I think that the distinguishing characteristic is to have a birth sex that does not align with, or a gender that does not align with one's birth sex. So it may include people who have different understandings of their gender identity, but I think it is still the distinguishing characteristic of a birth sex and a gender identity that are incongruent.
Are there individuals who are born male, assigned male at birth, who at one point identify as female, but then later come to identify as male, and likewise for individuals who are assigned female at birth, at some point identify as female, identify as male, but later come to identify as female? Are there not such people?
There are such people. I agree with that, Justice.
So it's not an immutable characteristic, is it?
Well, I think people's understanding of it shifts, but the evidence shows that there is at least a strong underlying basis. And I think the normative reason for that particular consideration is whether or not this is something that someone should or could change, and whether they should have to change it in order to receive constitutional protections. And I think transgender status squarely fits within.
So she gets taken to school massively. She gets taken out to the woodshed and gets her butt beat. It's not an immutable characteristic. Isn't that an insult? To be compared to somebody who's black or Asian or Hispanic in a suit, in a lawsuit or a violation of their 14th Amendment equal protection, as somebody who's transgender or transgender fluid, all this stuff, where you can go G-transition, go back. And by the way, and I'm not knocking this person, but it's a woman. She says she's a man. She says she's transgender surgery and all that stuff. But I'm just, that this person is a woman named Chase Strangio, or Strangio. She has said on the record, she presents as a man, but has written before, listen to this, she presents as a man, but has written before that there is no such thing as a male body. There is no such thing as a male body. I stand here looking at two men on the other side of the glass from me. I'm not going to ask to see what's downstairs, but I'm going to trust what I think is downstairs. And I would assume that they trust what they see over here as a man on this side of the glass, albeit a strikingly handsome man. I'm speaking on my side of the glass, not their side of the glass. I can't speak for their side of the glass. I just know the truth on my good looks here. And I got something downstairs that is what a man has. That is an immutable characteristic. Discrimination against a woman. Discrimination against somebody who's black, etc. Let's go to your call. Oh, by the way, I didn't play KBJ, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Then we'll go to your call. Here we go.
Being drawn by the statute. That was sort of like the starting point. The question was whether it was discriminatory because it applied to both races and it wasn't, necessarily invidious or whatever. But, as I read the statute here, the case here, the court starts off by saying that Virginia is now one of 16 states which prohibit and punish marriages on the basis of racial classifications. And when you look at the structure of that law, it looks in terms of, you can't do something that is inconsistent with your own characteristics. It's sort of the same thing. So it's interesting to me that we now have this different argument, and I wonder whether Virginia could have gotten away with what they did here by just making a classification argument the way that Tennessee is in this case.
Yes, I think that's exactly right, that there is absolutely a parallel between any law that says you can't act inconsistent with a protected characteristic and in all other contexts.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay. There's some audio from the Supreme Court hearing today. Let's go to Errol in Houston. Errol, WBAP, hello.
Good evening, Chris. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Yes, sir. The two minor interracial people, male and female, cannot get married. because they're minors. Most states have an age limit of at least 18 years old before people can get married, whether they're interracial couple or the same color, same race. So the idea that this is a violation of the 14th Amendment is ridiculous. I agree with the states. Minors should not be allowed to make this decision. They can't buy alcohol. They can't buy cigarettes because they're minors. We cannot allow them to make a life-altering decision, a body-altering decision that cannot be reversed. I agree with the states, and I hope the Supreme Court isn't bamboozled by the arguments of the left.
I very much agree. And when you have the lead counsel on this say that, I guess you're right, if somebody's gender fluid, that's not an immutable characteristic, the whole case blows up. And when you have people like Ollie London, a famous former child, I guess, band, or what do you call it, child band, a boy band star, who transitioned and now is a big spokesperson for detransitioning and wrote a book about it and everything like that. And you have people, scores of people in Britain and all over the country and in America who are detransitioning. That's not an immutable characteristic. You can't take away your race. It's insulting to me. It really is. Errol, I appreciate your call.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Can I pop on Dana real fast? Dana, Salina, you're on WBAP. What do you got?
Hi, Chris. I just wanted to point out that there's a reason that children don't get to make these big life-altering decisions.
Yes.
Just like the minor can't alter their body with piercings and tattoos. When I was a child, I loved Peter Pan and Captain Hook. I am sure glad that my parents didn't chop off my hand and put a hook on. I'm glad that when I wanted to, play pirate,
even if you identified as Captain Hook and you wanted your breastises lopped off and wanted to be a man, and then get a hook and everything like that, that you shouldn't be allowed to do that, is what you're saying to me.
Right. And children, like you said earlier, they jump on the trending bandwagon. They're already in that emotional turmoil of growth.
Oh, yeah.
And I just think it's such a crime. I don't care what they choose to do as an adult once their brains have developed and they have that freedom of choice.
Yes.
But I think it's our responsibility to protect our children. And it's criminal with what they are doing.
How sick?
Like you said.
Sorry, go ahead.
It makes me so sad. And I am in education. And I'm fortunate that, as I was an educator, I was very big for be who you are. And I support the kids. But I never, ever, ever would suggest that you should chop off your body parts, or because you might be a little confused or you lean one way, that as a child you should make that decision. I think their parents are criminal.
Yes. For example, if the kid wants to have sexual relations, and they're a minor, and you think that's okay, 5 years old, 8 years old, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
The parents would go to jail.
This is yes, and they should. Same thing with this. This is a sick thing. It really is a sickening thing when you think about it. This same person I told you about, who's a woman saying she's a man and says that there's no such thing as a male body, is who's presenting herself today in front of the Supreme Court as the lead plaintiff's attorney. She also, listen to this, she also argues in a clip that I could play for you, but it says she says that children as young as 2 years old might know they're in the wrong body. Children as young as 2 might know they're in the wrong body. How is this not vicious, disgusting, sick sexual abuse of a child? What in God's name is somebody doing? This to me is satanic.
Yes.
Thinking about a child who's 2 years old, their sexuality?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
This is sick.
If a boy wants to play with dolls, or they kind of lean to that that's totally fine. I mean, let them explore, let them figure out. But as far as and I'm sorry, my personal opinion on this, and I know people that are transgender because I'm in a very liberal type of.
There's nothing, whatever.
Field.
If somebody wants to, I don't agree with it, but there are people like when I was in Madison, Wisconsin, an extremely leftist town. Well, there's extremely leftist people over here too, of course. But like, there was a transgender person. She was a regular regular caller to my show, and I did one year. I'd love to do it again. It's been so long. I used to do It's a Wonderful Life, and I had regular callers reenact certain parts, and the transgender lady was Violet. She was one of the characters in it, and she came in. We did everybody in the studio. There's no mistreatment or disrespect. It is what it is, even though if I don't agree with it, which I don't, but that's okay. And you're an adult. You're an adult. That's not what this is about. Right. This is a disgusting, sick thing to sexualize a child and to entertain the sexualization of that child and to put that thought in their head is disgusting.
Yes, and I'll also bring this up. I think it's big pharma. Think about it. If they're encouraging all of these doctors to perform these surgeries, then these people that are transitioning, they are locked into paying for all of these hormones and these drugs.
You're absolutely right. I will bring up and then I got to go. The Daily Caller had video of the Tennessee, the Vols, University, whatever, or no, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, the head doctor there at the hospital. She said that she told doctors this is a very profitable part of the hospital's operation. That was video. We played it on the air. And after that, they shut everything down there because it was exposed. They said, this is good. This is a very valuable, the head doctor of the whole team that does this crap. This is a very valuable, it's our most highly profitable part of this hospital, butchering kids' genitals and putting them in a position they can never go back. I got to roll. Thank you for your great call, Dan. I'm glad you're an educator. All right, coming up next, speaking of this, the LPGA Tour makes a bombshell ruling on trans golfers, and J.K. Rowling comes out and says what horrible things she's been through for standing up against this radical leftist ideology of trans stuff, and while the New York Times tries to belittle it. All that next, Chris Crock Show in 2 minutes at 9:51 on WBAP. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. The LPGA makes a bombshell ruling on trans golfers. Brand new policy, total U-turn. Under the new policy, athletes who are assigned female at birth are eligible to compete in the LPGA Tour. In other words, if you're born a female, if you're born a woman, a child, female. Players assigned male at birth who have gone through male puberty are not eligible. So you have to transition before you even have puberty, which eliminates probably 95 to 98% of any transgender person. So you're looking at good luck if you can find one person. Yeah, no one should be able to play unless you're born a female. It's called women's rights. It's called Title IX, and it's a very important thing. We're all the feminists. They're bought and sold by the leftist radical transgender people. J.K. Rowling is she's been sharing how the terrorists and the transgender terrorist movement have threatened her. She said, I've been sent thousands of threats of murder, rape, and violence. A transgender person posted my family's home address with a bomb-making guide. What we've endured is nothing, she says, all compared to the harm that's been done to others. By standing up to a movement that relies on threats of violence, ostracization, and guilt by association, all of us have been smeared and defamed, but many have lost their livelihood. Some have been physically assaulted by trans activists. Female politicians have been forced to hire personal security on the advice of police. The news that one of the UK's leading endocrinologists, Dr. Hilary Cass, was advised not to travel by public transport for her own safety should shame everyone who let this insanity run amok. The New York Times downplayed what she said. Their article published recently cited the Harry Potter author, saying when J.K. Rowling said that denying any relationship between sex and biology was deeply misogynistic and regressive, a prominent LGBT group accused her of betraying real feminism. Oh, gosh, that's rich. The article noted to get on the wrong side of transgender activists is often to endure their unsparing criticism, adding that some transgender activists say it's time to rethink and recalibrate their confrontational ways. They're pushing back against all the all or nothing voices in their coalition. Well, here's my questions for you to throw out. Why do you think critics of the radical trans ideology are treated like this? And what does this say about the people supporting this radical movement? You know what I think about? The Tranifesto. Remember that radical transgender ideology, that Satan worshiper who went and targeted the church and the school, the Christian school that she went to as a child, and she shot up and killed that thing? And she wrote a Tranifesto that was released talking about wanting to harm and kill every little child, how much she hates that school and the Christian faith and everything. Sick. And then she murdered those children, that sick transgender terrorist. How would you feel about your daughter forfeiting a competition, by the way, in order not to have to compete with a male athlete? My gosh. I'll share a teeny bit more on this with you. We got the Boise State team that said no to playing that transgender volleyball player at San Jose State. Walmart has changed its policies. I'm going to hit on that, too, coming up next. But also, big time, I want to get into this. You're not going to believe this. I've got a horror nightmare of a drunken high woman in epic body cam arrest, and it's actually at the suburb where my wife grew up at. Oh, this is beyond anything you've ever seen. That's coming up next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. 800-288-WBAP is our number.